Hello everybody, Vladimir here. So today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to get started with cycles rendering in Blender. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to see up here where it says Blender Render. I'm going to click that and change that to cycles. Now, you may be wondering what cycles is, or you may already know what it is. But cycles is the realistic render engine for Blender. So it can achieve pretty good results. For right now, I'm just going to turn on the snap there, so I can just drag that up with that. I'm going to right click on my lamp here, and I'm going to hit X and then left click delete. Because we aren't going to be using those types of lamps, we're going to be using actually different lamps. Now I'm going to press Shift and then A, or instead you could go down to Add. I find Shift A a little bit quicker. And then I'm going to click on Plane. I'm going to press S, which will scale. And then I'm going to scale about to there, which you could see was 8. That gives us a nice little plane to have our box on. Here we've got our camera, and you can press 0 on the number pad to see what the camera sees, and that looks good. So let's start to get into some of the settings that you need for rendering it. I have a GPU in this computer, so I'm going to switch it from CPU to GPU compute. You may first need to go to user preferences, and then system, and then change your compute device. Yes, I know this is a pretty low powered GPU, but I basically got it for Blender rendering, and it does, I think, about 50% faster than the CPU, so pretty good in my opinion. So we got that set to GPU compute there. We're going to just leave the resolution frame rate settings for now, and then we're going to open up the sampling, and we're going to open up performance. In performance, what I found is fastest on my GPU is 192 by 192, and that's basically dividing this view up, which has this many pixels in it, into 192 by 192 chunks. So we can close that for now. Don't need to worry about film. The sampling is where you make it look good, and it seems a lot of people miss this. But really, Cycles doesn't look good at all with the default 10 samples. If you're doing a still, I would recommend closer to maybe 500, probably higher than that. And of course, basically the samples means, as it says, the number of samples to render for each pixel. A sample is basically following the light path, and so the more samples you have, the more average the color is going to be and the more smooth. The fewer you have, the more it's going to look grainy. And I can actually show you that if we just render this. Okay, well, it doesn't look super grainy, but you can see that there's some little bit of grain there. It's kind of meh. You probably also can't see it because we don't have any lamps in it, and that's perfectly fine. So let's start to dive into materials. And materials aren't really cross-compatible between the Blender render and the Cycles render. It's just how they are. They're different. It's just how they are. So let's go into the Materials tab after we've right-clicked on our plane here, which you can see is highlighted by the orange border. We're going to click New, and that's going to give it a new material. We can give it a name of Ground, and let's just say we make it some sort of dark green, almost grass looking like. So you're going to see the color has changed here, but it doesn't really look green in the viewport. So what you need to go to is the settings here, and then you can change the viewport color to something close. You can even use the eyedropper and pick that color. I think that will be Yeah, that looks pretty exact. So you can get that easily like that. And so now you got the proper colors. Now we're going to right click on our cube and we're going to give that a new material as well. And actually it looks like it already has a material, so even better. We're going to call this one cube. So we're going to just set our diffuse color to something, how about like yellowish. There we go. So I guess I should point out this cube, which was the default in the scene, is set to not use nodes, and so it's got a basic simple color. So the diffuse color is automatically linked with the viewport color, which is why I changed here. But this, it looks like it was already set to use nodes, and so that's why we had to change them independently. And just for it to be a little bit easier and more consistent, we're going to say yes, use nodes. And basically it's the same thing, where from this list we've got it set to diffuse, and we set the color. Easy enough, you know? Okay, so now we want to add a lamp, because currently if we render this, it's kind of dark and grainy, and we need the light in there. So, we're going to just press A to deselect everything, and then we're going to do Shift A, Mesh, Plane. So now there's a plane sitting there, and you can kind of see it's flickering through the ground. And it looks like we've got snapping still on. So we're going to drag that over here, and then we're going to drag that up like that. And remember to grab the tips of the handles, not like the white area here where it doesn't lock to a specific dimension. It's just easier that way to control. So I'm going to hit R, and then I'm going to lock that to the x-axis. So I'm going to press X. And then in the bottom left, you're going to see I rotate that to -45. And then I'm going to rotate along the Z by pressing R and then Z. And I'm going to do -45 as well. So now I've got it kind of angled down at the cube here. And this is where our camera is, and you can kind of see that off to the right. Now, that's not that big of a lamp, so let's scale that up. So I can press S, and I can move it manually, but I know what size I want to make it. I want to make it twice the size, so I'm going to press 2, and then press return. And now it's going to be a little bit bigger. So we need to give this a material, because this is going to be a lamp, and a lamp is a type of material. So we're going to name this lamp, and we're going to change this from diffuse to emission, which is right here. And now it's going to have 1 as the strength. You can even change the color of the light. So you can make that like blue or a little bit more yellow, depending on your choice. And we're going to bump up, I think we'll say 5 for now. And we'll give that a render. By the way, render is F12. I've actually remapped it to F19. Or function 19, I should say. So it doesn't quite look like that's bright enough, so let's just keep bumping up until we find something that we like. That looks somewhat good, but it might be too close. So let's just raise that up a little bit, move that away some, and we'll bump up the brightness again. To try to give it a little bit of a smoother light shadow thing, whatever. The casting of the light, so it'll be a little bit smoother. So you can see this like shadow area gets kind of like messy there. It's like the green's okay here. I mean, there's a little bit of fuzziness, and then the shadow is like just speckles, and that's kind of not good. Especially when you're talking about like final products in your rendering. And that's where samples come in. Now, at 10 samples with our render, we got, pretty good render time. And, I mean, it does look okay-ish. So it looks like it took about 7 seconds to render that. But if we bump that up to 50, that should take 5 times as long. But it could theoretically make a much better result, and that's kind of a good thing. So you can see that this shadow and area is kind of better now, and you can see it was fuzzy, and then it basically crystallizes a little bit. So that's all good, but it took much longer. So in the end, it's going to be a trade-off between quality and how much time it actually takes to render. Because, you know, if it takes forever for it to render, well, you won't actually get any result. So I would honestly bump that up to about 500 samples. Or maybe 500's a bit pushing it. Maybe like 300 or something. And that would make it look really nice. And it would be pretty good. You can see this side is even nice and reasonably clear, though this is ever so slightly fuzzy on the other side. And one of the advantages of using the GPU is the GPU is designed to do a bunch of the same calculation all at once, and that's kind of how it does really nice, fast graphics processing, where it can say, okay, like let's just say in a game, okay, so here's how we want to render this scene. Okay, now apply the same lighting algorithm to this pixel, this pixel, this pixel, this pixel, and stuff like that. And basically it does the exact same thing, but in Blender, and we actually get our results back and into Blender. There is support out there for AMD cards. However, that's not quite as good as the CUDA in support-wise. So you will probably have to keep that in mind if you're using an AMD card. Yours might not work. AMD did contribute some patches, I believe, to Blender. It should make them work better, but your results may vary. So yeah, you can see here the shadow looks much better than it did just a moment ago. However, this is also 1 minute and 45 seconds in, and it's still going. And yes, there is a remaining amount of time there. So as you can see, it's kind of a trade-off between what looks good and when you actually get the result. So I'm just going to cancel that by pressing escape for now. And now to compare that, I'm going to bump over to the Blender render, and I'm going to have to recreate the materials real quick. Like, oop, not good. There we go. New material, we'll make that one yellow. Go close that, do that. We'll make this green. This should be able to be ignored. But I'm just gonna press. I'm just gonna press M and then 2, and then I'll move it to layer 2, and then I'll add a lamp back in, and we'll be able to, or actually I'll add a sun, and that we'll be able to compare the results. So I'm gonna do rotate X, and then -45, rotate Z, -45, and we should get about a 45-degree angle. And if we render that, while the result is much faster, it kind of doesn't look as good, particularly on the shadows. Yes, there are ways to configure this. I think like in shadow or something. It's hard to tell exactly how you do that. I mostly use cycles because A, it looks better, and B, I don't have to mess with all of those settings to try to get a good result. So as you saw, that was also really quick to render, but it didn't look quite as good. So I'm just gonna undo to where I have all my materials back. And there's a couple other things that I want to cover with the cycles rendering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move the cube over a little bit, and then I'm going to add a mesh called Monkey. This is Suzanne. Kind of a Blender thing, where they added this little monkey head and called her Suzanne. So we're just going to place that there. We're going to go to edit mode by pressing tab. We're going to do subdivide smooth. And we'll do that twice. You know what? No, we're not going to go that way. Oop. We're going to do a modifier. So we're going to go here, and we're going to do subdivision surface. We're going to view 2, and we're going to shade smooth, so that we got a little bit of a smoother result. Instead of like that, we've got it like that. Now that does bump up the vertices, so that will theoretically slow it down. I've applied the modifier. We're going to go to materials. We're going to click new. We're going to just call this monkey, and we're going to actually change the material here. So from this, what we're going to do is we're going to go to mix shader, and then we're going to do diffuse, and we're also going to do where is it? And oh my god, I can't remember how to say that. Whatever. You get the point. We've got basically a reflection, and we've got our diffuse, and then we can mix those two together. So I'm just going to make this like a little bit of a darker gray, and let's give this a live preview by going to the rendered view. And so that's what the monkey looks like there. You can see the light that's actually come from the lamp over here and bounced off of here is actually reflecting onto this. You don't really get that with the Blender internal engine. So that's pretty cool and also more realistic. And let's see if we can mess with the settings a little bit. That's a bit too glossy. Try about there. You can, of course, also adjust all of these settings to your desired settings, whatever, to your desired look. So that looks about good, like that. So let's give that a render, and we'll see how that looks. And here you're also going to see one of the reasons for the high samples, because you want it to be averaged out. However, it's starting to get these like weird little fireflies, and we can actually fix that somewhat. Theoretically, you will lose quality. However, what you also lose in quality, you gain by removing the fireflies. So let's wait for it to finish this tile. Okay, so that's what it rendered with 300 samples. And that's quite a lot. So we're going to just press escape to cancel that. And we're going to mess with our indirect clamp. So we're going to try, let's just try 0.2. And we'll give that a render, and we'll see what that looks like. That might be enough. Yeah, that looks actually pretty good like that. Maybe 0.2. Maybe we can squeak in 0.2. Or 0.1, my bad. 0.1 would be nice. Basically, the lower you have that, the less that we're going to have the weird speckling. However, you're going to lose some accuracy by doing that. You can see here it actually looks much better. And of course that's here's actual size. That looks pretty good now. So I hope that was at least an interesting introduction to using the Cycles Render engine in Blender, and a little taste of the materials and a look at the difference between the Cycles and the Blender internal engine. So I hope this was useful for you guys, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!